Well, there's no easy way to say this, so I'll just come out and say it. You need to let your students grade you. I'm Mr. Dan Miller. Welcome to Teacher Tips. Yes, you heard that right. I want you to give your students the opportunity to grade you. So why do I think that you should allow your students to grade you? Well, the fact is, you've been grading them all year. And I know that's your job, and that's what you do, is try and recognize where their strengths and weaknesses are. But in all honesty, I think they should have the chance to have something to say about you too. You get to say things about them all year, and you're trying to help them grow to become better students. They should be allowed to say some things about you to try and help you become a better teacher. We always talk about reflecting on our teaching. If you're like me as a teacher, you're constantly grading yourself on how good you're doing, how well the lessons went, what you can do better, things like that. You're constantly doing that, but you're just one person. Now, I know your principal gets to see you a couple times a year teaching, and maybe your coworkers once in a while get to see you teaching, but your students get to see you almost every day or every day teaching. And they are your audience. They are the people you are serving, and so they have the best insights. They're the ones who can offer the most pertinent advice. You are only one person, and even though you may have a pretty good idea of where your strengths and weaknesses are, your students have a better idea. A teacher report card is a way that you can see your strengths and weaknesses. You can find lots of them online. The one that I've used for a number of years I found on Teachers Pay Teachers from a lady called Madame R's French Resources. I'll have a link to it below. But that's been the one that I've used for 6 or 7 years now, and I have really enjoyed using it. Basically, it's 30 multiple choice questions, and by multiple choice I mean they give you a rating, a score, your students do, of a 1 to a 5. 1 being you're very bad or you didn't do well at something, and 5 being you did the best possible. You're the greatest teacher ever for that thing. You just blew it out of the water. I added one question to the resource that I use for a teacher report card, and that was, what's one thing you didn't like that we did this year? It helps me to see one thing that maybe I might consider taking out the following year and changing out for a different activity or idea or lesson or whatever. A teacher grade card is a good tool for reflecting on your teaching. It allows the students to get a chance to say some things about how you did for that year. Now, I know what you're thinking. The students are just going to destroy me. They're going to obliterate me. They're going to not be honest, and it's not going to matter, and this is stupid and whatever. I'm here to tell you that that's just not true. Students will be fair and honest with you if you have been fair and honest with them over the course of the year. I have found that in my years of experience doing this. They are very open and reasonable. When I talk to them about it, I always tell them the only way this is helpful to me is if you're honest with me. It doesn't do me any good, and it doesn't do you any good if you just lie on it. If you say I'm the greatest teacher ever and you give me all the best scores possible, you might think that's helping me, but it's really not, because how is that going to help me to become a better teacher by just looking at it and going, I'm the best teacher there ever was that walked the earth? We all know that's not true, and so I'll tell them that, and I'll say, since obviously that's not true, I should have some lower scores as well, some things that are weaknesses, so that I can see where I need to improve. So don't just give me all the best score because you think I'm a good teacher. You need to be giving me scores that fit whatever statement is there, whatever thing it is asking about. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, I tell them if they hated my guts and they think I'm the worst teacher ever, the best way they can help me to improve is by giving me a fair and honest score. If they just say I'm the worst teacher ever and they give me all the lowest score possible, how does that help me to become a better teacher? I can't see where my real weaknesses are. It just looks like I'm bad at everything. How can I improve when I'm bad at everything? I mean, I guess there's only room to go up, but it's not really helpful. I need things I can focus on. And so I'll tell them, even if you thought I wasn't that great of a teacher, tell me what I'm not that great at then. Where can I improve most? And when I have shared the idea of a teacher grade card in this way with the students, they are very willing to be open and honest and fair and reasonable with their responses. I've always seen that. Now, I have used this resource with 3rd through 8th graders, and it has been successful in all of them. The resource says it's supposed to be used for middle school or secondary students, but I've used it as low as 3rd grade. Now, I did read the students a lot of the questions or explain them a little bit more in depth because some of them the language is a little bit tougher for the younger kids. But when you explain it to them or when you read it to them and they know what it means, they'll gladly respond and they'll give a reasonable response to that. I always tell them if they don't understand to just come up and ask when they're going through it. I used to actually leave the room while the students were doing the evaluation or step outside the classroom, not like run away down the hallway or anything, but step outside so they didn't feel like they were pressured. That worked really well with middle school students just because I told them when I was in college, we would grade our college professors and they would have to step outside the room when we did that so we wouldn't feel pressured or anything. Not that I ever would have felt pressured. I probably would have told them how I felt anyway. But irregardless of that, I wanted my students to feel comfortable with that. With the younger kids, I don't think they feel pressured at all. If they said they felt pressured or if I thought that was the aura or feel from the environment I was getting, I just would step out to help them to feel more comfortable. But I don't think that needs to happen at the younger grades. When the time comes for the students to actually give you the grades on the report card, I always pitch it to them as saying that they're helping you to help them. So ultimately, they are giving you these scores to help you become a better teacher so that you can help future students who come into that grade or that class or that whatever. They are bridging the gap. They're preparing you for that next year. They're helping you to see where you can improve for next year's students. You can also tell them that they're helping you to improve yourself as a teacher, which is true. One other really big thing about having your students grade you like this is it forces you to be vulnerable. It forces you to open yourself up as a teacher and say, I want you to show me what I'm not doing that great at. We don't like being vulnerable, but our students are vulnerable all the time in our classroom. And in fact, we expect that so often. We expect them to be vulnerable for us. Isn't it fair and reasonable that they can expect that once in a while we're going to be vulnerable for them? It reminds us what it's like to be in that position of vulnerability to others, in opening ourselves up to being critiqued and criticized a little bit even. We need to come in with the mindset that it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to let students see that side of us. It's okay to give them the opportunity to tell us about ourselves as teachers. Obviously, I take the time after I give out the teacher report card to look at them and gather the data. Usually I make an Excel spreadsheet with all the information, and then I take an average of each one out of a total of either 5 or 10 points. I average the whole class's scores, and sometimes even before the end of the year, I'm able to show the students the feedback they gave me as a class, and they find that very interesting. But even if you can't do that, you can look at it yourself over the summer. Not only do I think and try and improve from the teacher report card, but I also will post the results of the teacher report card the following year in my classroom for students to see. I've done that in the past. It's a little harder now because I'm on a rolling cart and I have every class in the school building, but I can still share results with each class as I go in there. In the past, I've posted the top 3 strengths I have as a teacher that students told me about in the teacher report card, and the top 3 weaknesses I have as a teacher from the student report card results. I've posted those on the wall in the classroom for students to see. And you might say, that's crazy. Why would you post those things for the students to see? Well, let's face it. The students have posted expectations and things they're supposed to do and improve on. I'm going to post my weaknesses so that the students can see what I'm working to improve on. And they can also help hold me accountable. I tell them that, hey, I'd like you to help me to be accountable to the things I am trying to be better at, the expectations that I am holding myself to, so that I can become a better teacher. You can help me do that by pointing out when I'm not meeting those expectations, when I'm not trying to improve on those weaknesses. You can say, hey, Mr. D, remember, you're trying to work on that in class. You're trying to improve. And I always tell them, I am not going to take that as a negative thing. I will always, when I hear that, I'll think of, they are trying to help me to improve and be better. Down below this video, I will place a link to the teacher report card that I use in my classroom. I will also place a link to an Excel spreadsheet that shows my scores numbered for each question on the teacher report card. It shows my average score, and I actually color-coded it too, just so I could see easily what the best and the worst were. Now that report card can be used to celebrate the things students tell you that are your strengths. It can be used to celebrate your strengths, but you also need to use it to recognize your weaknesses and learn from them. We ask our students to learn from their weaknesses in our classrooms. We need to learn from our weaknesses too, and this is one way to do that. It's not about bringing you down. It's about growing and becoming a better teacher. We have to remind ourselves that there are times where it's not our students that need to make a change. It's us as teachers. It's not my students that need to make a change. It's me. And that's okay. Recognizing that is a really important attribute of a good teacher. A good teacher will take the advice offered by their students and make changes. If you become the stagnant teacher that doesn't care what your students think, then you're going to become the teacher that doesn't make any changes and keeps doing the same things year after year after year, and you're not going to improve at all. And honestly, I think that's a strategy that will lead you straight into being the crotchety old teacher that does all the things in the old ways and doesn't make any changes when changes are necessary. Listen, I don't like change. Never really have. But if it means that I'm going to be a better teacher, I want to make some changes. I've always had the attitude, and I think most teachers of goodwill have the attitude, that to be the best teacher we can be, we have to make changes. We have to look at what's best for the kids, and if there's something we can do to be better, to help them, we need to do that. Whatever it is. Put our own views aside and say, what's best for the kids, and stick with that. Ultimately, we are in this job of teaching to help kids, to help them to learn and grow, to help them to become good citizens. And in order to do that, we need to be the best teacher we can be. And sometimes in order to be the best teacher we can be, we have to look to how we can improve. We have to look to the people we can serve to offer us their insight and their advice about us.